there's a section in the beginning that I think is relevant to what we're talking about today. So I'm going to read that. The watcher's eyes now give out light. The light's receiver flower, coiled up behind their nose bones, changes place. It crawls out through their pupils, the bundled nervy flowers making a circuit between each other. Bolts the color of limes boil, forking through the busy air. Their brains are still inside them, but the sundown is made to simmer with a brain that none of them quite have alone, and each one has something like it. Facets of the brain's shelled diamond, the cage-strumming man strings out his carousel of shapes, while catgut thrums out slippery chords, and the people watching him are in the circuit of an ancient battery that sleeps behind their eyes, and none of them will know how to tell what has happened, but everyone will know that it can happen again. And they'll say, I was a tree, I was a vine that sucked the brasswork, I was an ivy knot that lived on the milk of stones. So that's from Michael S. Judge's Lyrics of the Crossing, which I'm not very far into. And it's a description which has a whole lot going on. Probably talk about that for an hour. But also, it's a description that is of a bard, like a performer, singing a song, doing some kind of performance. And in the section before that, he talks about the catgut cage, because, the strings of old tennis rackets, the strings of old instruments were made with catgut. But he describes the lyre, or whatever this guy is playing, like it is a cage. He calls it a cage stringed with catgut, but it's an instrument. And if you think about, classical mythology, who plays the lyre? It's Orpheus, right? And the lyre makes such beautiful music that he can call a soul out of the underworld, except for the one he wants. He has this beautiful lyre. But here, Judge is calling it a cage that is trapping something. And there's something going on there about the music basically pulling these people's brains outside of their eye holes, because the sunset, like the setting that they're in, or the time that they're in, maybe, we don't know if it's a sunset on a beach or the sunset that he's describing of an epoch changing of culture, connects all of their brains, right? Like, what a wild description. The light's receiver flower coiled up behind their nose bones. That's your brain. It's the receiver flower coiled up behind your nose bone that receives the light, right? The cage, the instrument, the culture, the music, pulls these people's brains, either because of the time that they're in or the place that they're in, something about this setting. And he calls the brain, he says, faucets of the brain's shell diamond. They're only like a piece of a whole thing. When they're pulled out and connected, that connection, and there's a battery language, there's a circuit language, it's an electricity, becomes something that is bigger than them and also alive, right? So it's this connection that makes something bigger than all of these people alive in a way that they're a part of it and they know it, but they also don't know it. And there's just so much there. And I if that doesn't make sense, that's fine. I think a lot of those themes are going to be relevant to what we're getting into. The sundown's made to simmer with a brain that none of them quite have alone. We are building a circuit by connecting people with a culture that is also a cage. And it is making them something that is not them by connecting them, right? And this is